The Second World War was a time of unprecedented violence and destruction. Yet, even amidst the horrors of global conflict, some atrocities stand out for their sheer cruelty and depravity. One such dark chapter unfolded in the Japanese-occupied city of Harbin, China, where a secret military unit known as Unit 731 conducted horrific human experiments on thousands of innocent people. This essay delves into the chilling history of Unit 731, exploring its origins, its gruesome experiments, and its lasting impact on our understanding of wartime ethics and the limits of scientific inquiry. For years, the activities of Unit 731 remained shrouded in secrecy, hidden from the world by the Japanese government. However, as with all secrets, the truth eventually emerged, revealing a tale of unimaginable suffering and barbarity. From vivisections without anesthesia to deliberate infections with deadly diseases, the experiments conducted by Unit 731 violated every principle of human dignity and medical ethics. The scale of the atrocities committed at Unit 731 is staggering. Thousands of men, women, and children, mostly Chinese but also including Russians, Koreans, and others, were subjected to unspeakable horrors at the hands of Japanese doctors and scientists. They were treated not as human beings but as disposable research subjects, their lives deemed expendable in the pursuit of scientific knowledge and military advantage. This essay aims to shed light on this dark period of history, not to sensationalize the suffering, but to ensure that the victims of Unit 731 are never forgotten. By understanding the horrors that transpired within the walls of this facility, we can learn from the past and work towards a future where such atrocities are never repeated. The origins of Unit 731 can be traced back to the early 1930s, a time when Japanese militarism was on the rise. Driven by imperial ambitions and a belief in their own racial superiority, Japanese leaders began to invest heavily in military research, including the development of biological and chemical weapons. In 1932, under the guise of a water purification unit, a secret research facility was established in the Chinese city of Harbin. This facility, which would later become infamous as Unit 731, was placed under the command of Shiro Ishii, an ambitious and ruthless military physician. Ishii, a fervent believer in the potential of biological warfare, envisioned a unit that would not only research deadly pathogens, but also develop methods for weaponizing them. Under Ishii's leadership, Unit 731 quickly grew in size and scope. New buildings were constructed, laboratories were equipped with the latest technology, and a steady supply of prisoners began to arrive from nearby detention camps. These prisoners, referred to by their Japanese captors as logs, were mostly Chinese civilians suspected of anti-Japanese activities, but they also included Soviet soldiers, political dissidents, and even pregnant women and children. The remote location of the facility in Japanese-occupied Manchuria provided an ideal cover for its clandestine activities. Far from the prying eyes of international observers, Ishii and his team were free to conduct their horrific experiments with impunity, their actions hidden beneath a veil of secrecy and deception. The prisoners of Unit 731 were not viewed as human beings by their Japanese captors. Instead, they were dehumanized, reduced to mere experimental subjects, or logs as the Japanese called them. Stripped of their identities and denied even the most basic human rights, these individuals were subjected to unimaginable cruelty and suffering. Upon arrival at Unit 731, prisoners were often sorted based on age, gender, and physical condition. Some were selected for immediate experimentation, while others were kept in overcrowded and unsanitary cells awaiting their fate. Food and water were scarce, and disease was rampant, further weakening the prisoners and making them more susceptible to the experiments that awaited them. The conditions within Unit 731 were designed to break the spirit and dehumanize the prisoners. They were subjected to constant surveillance, deprived of sleep, and often used for forced labor. The psychological toll of this treatment was immense, leaving many prisoners emotionally scarred and psychologically broken, even before they were subjected to the physical horrors of the experiments. The dehumanization of the prisoners was essential to the operation of Unit 731. By stripping away their humanity, the Japanese doctors and scientists were able to rationalize their actions, convincing themselves that they were not torturing and killing human beings, but merely conducting necessary research on subhuman test subjects. This deliberate blurring of moral lines allowed the atrocities at Unit 731 to continue unabated, fueled by a toxic mix of scientific ambition, wartime propaganda, and racial prejudice. The experiments conducted at Unit 731 were as varied as they were horrific. Driven by a desire to understand the limits of human endurance and develop new weapons of war, Japanese doctors and scientists subjected their captives to a litany of gruesome procedures, often without anesthesia or any regard for their suffering. One of the most common experiments involved vivisection, the surgical dissection of living beings. Prisoners, often infected with diseases like plague or cholera, would be strapped to operating tables and cut open without anesthesia, their organs examined and removed while they were still conscious. These vivisections were often performed on pregnant women, with the fetuses removed and studied for the effects of the diseases. Other experiments focused on testing the effectiveness of biological weapons. Prisoners were deliberately infected with deadly diseases like anthrax, plague, and cholera, and their agonizing deaths were carefully observed and documented. In some cases, prisoners were tied to stakes and used as living test subjects for germ bombs, their bodies riddled with shrapnel and infected with deadly pathogens. The cruelty of Unit 731 knew no bounds. Prisoners were subjected to extreme temperatures, spun in centrifuges until they passed out, and injected with animal blood and seawater. They were even used to test the effects of poison gas, their screams echoing through the corridors of the facility as they slowly suffocated to death.